Text 9, huh? Yes. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padurika Acharya Ashtotar the Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. And Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudika Acharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayan Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Madhiriye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nar Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Back there. Okay. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 9th day of September, 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 7, the Science of God. Chapter 12, the Perfect Society for Spiritual Classes. Text number 9. Nanu Agni Pramada Nama Grita Kumbha Samah Puman Sutam Api Raho Jayad Anyada Yavad Artakrit Nanvagni Pramadanama Grita Kumbha Samak Puman Sutam Apiraho Jayad Anyadayavad Artakrit Nanvagni Pramadanama Gritakumbha Samak Puman Sutam Apiraho Jayad Anyadayavad Artakrit Nanvagni Pramadanama Gritakumbha Samak Puman Sutam Apiraho Jayad Anyadayavad Artakrit Nanvagni Pramadanama Gritakumbha Samak Puman Sutam Apiraho Jayad Anyadayavad Artakrit Nanvagni Pramadanama Gritakumbha Samak Puman Sutam Apiraho Jayad Anyadayavad Artakrit Nanvagni Pramadanama Gritakumbha Samak Puman Sutam Apiraho Jayad Anyadayavad Artakrit Nanvagni Pramadanama Gritakumbha Samak Puman Sutam Apiraho Jayad Anyadayavad Artakrit Nanvagni Pramadanama Gritakumbha Samak Puman Sutam Apiraho Jayad Anyadayavad Artakrit. Ladies? No? Okay. Nanu, certainly. Agnihi, the fire. Pramada, the woman, one who bewilders the mind of man. Nama, the very name. Gritakumbha, a pot of butter. Samaha, like. Puman, a man. Sutamapi, even one's daughter. Raha, in a secluded place. Jahyat, one must not associate with. Anyada, with other women also. Yavat, as much as. Artakrit, required. Woman is compared to fire, and man is compared to a butter pot. Therefore, a man should avoid associating even with his own daughter in a secluded place. Similarly, he should also avoid association with other women. One should associate with women only for important business and not otherwise. Please repeat. Woman is compared to fire, and man is compared to a butter pot. Therefore, a man should avoid associating even with his own daughter in a secluded place. Similarly, he should also avoid association with other women. One should associate with women only for important business and not otherwise. Purport. If a butter pot and fire are kept together, the butter within the pot will certainly melt. Woman is compared to fire, and man is compared to a butter pot. However advanced one may be in restraining the senses, it is almost impossible for a man to keep himself controlled in the presence of a woman, even if she is his own daughter, mother, or sister. Indeed, his mind is agitated even if one is in the renounced order of life. Therefore, Vedic civilization carefully restricts mingling between men and women. If one cannot understand the basic principle of restraining association between man and woman, he is to be considered an animal. That is the purport of this verse. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana salakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, I'd like to read a couple of verses in purport from the Bhagavad Gita, which are pertinent to this. Most of you are familiar with this verse, 262, Dhyayato Vishayan Pungsa. So I'll say, you say, those who know it. Dhyayato Vishayan Pungsa, Sangasteshu Pajayate, Sangat Sanjayate Kama, Kamat Krodho Bijayate. Next verse. Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha, Sammohat Smriti Vimbramaha, Smriti Brangshad Buddhinasho, Buddhinashat Pranashyati. Okay, I'm going to read the two translations together. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So I'm going to read this first purport, which is very pertinent. And then we'll read the purport to the verse Prabhupada has. One who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the objects of the senses. The senses require real engagements, and if they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects, and the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, but when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal, and as a result, Kartikeya was born. When Haridas Thakur was a young devotee of the Lord, he was similarly allured by the incarnation of Maya Devi, but Haridas easily passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. As illustrated in the above-mentioned verse of Sri Yamunacharya. Now this is quoted in a previous purport, which is a famous verse, Yadavadimamacheta Krishna Padada Vinde Navanamada Sadhaman Yuditam Vrantamasi Tadavadipadanadi Sangame Smayamani Bhavati Mukhavikara Sushtanishtivanancha. So Yamunacharya is saying here, ever since I have been to moment pleasure by serving the lotus feet of Nandanandana, Krishna, whenever I think of sex life, because he had a whole period there where he was a king, so he had all kinds of facility for that. Whenever I think of sex life with the women, my lips turn in distaste, and I spit at the thought. So Prabhupada is referring to that verse. As illustrated by the above-mentioned verse of Yamunacharya, a sincere devotee of the Lord shuns all material sense enjoyment due to his higher taste for spiritual enjoyment in the association of the Lord. That is the secret of success. One who is not, therefore, in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses by artificial repression, is sure ultimately to fail, for the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. And so, let's see. All right, I'm going to read I don't think I read the purport to the other verse, did I? Did I read the purport? If a butter pot and fire are kept together, the butter... Yes, I did read that. Okay. So let me go back to this third verse. So after these two verses, 64 and 62 and 63, which we read, then there's this verse. Krishna said, maybe you know this one. Ragadvesha muktais Vishayan indriyaischcharan Atmavasya vidheyatma Prasadam anigacchati. Translation: but a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. So these three verses, the two verses that describe one's meditating the object of the senses, becoming attached, and then developing lust, and then developing anger, and then losing one's intelligence and being destroyed. And this verse, the present verse, describing how to avoid that fate, are very pertinent to this discussion. We're reading about the glories of the Varnashram system, and here especially about the Brahmachari ashram and Sannyasa ashram, and how it's so dangerous to loosely associate with women in those ashrams, and that means beginning with talking and hanging out and whatever, you know. Because the basic principle of our life in the material world is our sex attraction, our wanting to imitate Krishna as the enjoyer. And how is Krishna the supreme enjoyer? We know all about the rasa dance and all of the thousands of Lakshmis and so forth. So it's that envy of Krishna, that little seed that develops when we turn away from Krishna and we turn our face toward the material energy, and then we forget. We're covered. We forget our actual nature. We forget who we really are. And we start our sojourn. Sojourn means not a journey, but our stay in the material world, which is characterized by attraction to the opposite sex. And not just women, all kinds of females and all kinds of species. The same principle is there. So this is a central principle of the practice of Bhakti sadhana. Because as Prabhupada points out, and going back again to the Bhagavad Gita verse, because this is the key verse, and the key phrase in that verse is Atma Vashay Vidheyatma. Vidheyatma, this is the regulative principles of freedom. The word vidhi, as in Vaidhi Bhakti, means principles by which we follow in order to attain perfection in Bhakti. So by following those principles of surrender and renunciation and all of the things that we know from the nectar of instruction, by purposely following them, including the regulated program of chanting and hearing and performing bhakti, by which the main principle is that we're getting attracted to Krishna. The sex desire is being sublimated into attraction to Krishna. That's what's happening. It's unnatural for the soul to be completely covered and to be controlled by the senses and the mind intelligence, and to be uncontrollably attracted to the opposite sex and then enjoy and suffer, birth and death. That's what we've been doing for many millions of years. And the basic principle is the sex life. And from that, especially in human life, expands everything else. That famous verse by Rishabdev, where he says, Pungsas tuya mituni bhavametan tayo mato hridaya grantamahu ata griya cheta sutta apta vitta janasya moho yamaham mameti. So a very important verse. He said, Pungsastriya, the man and woman, the attraction between man, Pungsastriya mituni bhavam, the mood, the aura of sex, of mituni bhavam. You see, it naturally develops if there's no restriction. And tayo mito, and when we actually get united in sex, either through marriage or in illicit sex, mito ata griha, excuse me, pungsastriya mituniba tayo mito vidya grantamahu, and the knot in the heart becomes tighter. The attraction becomes that much tighter when there's that sex act. And then in any, relatively civilized society, there follows some kind of marriage. Ata means next. Griha, cheta, sutta, apta, vitar. There has to be a place. You have to have a griha, a place to live, right, to set up the family. So it can be a little apartment, it can be a big house, or it can be some kind of van. These poor people, homeless people, they're living in their vans. Somehow or other, there's a griha. And then there needs to be a way to maintain. Now, he says chaitra because traditionally, especially in India, you have a piece of land, and you farm the land, and then you can raise crops, and then this way you can sustain. But chaitra, in general, can mean any kind of job. And then come the children. Sutta. Sutta means sons, basically, right? It's sons and daughters. Ata, griha, cheta, sutta, and then apta, all of the extended family, right? Relatives of all kinds. When you marry someone, you don't marry just a woman, you marry the whole other family. Now you have so many in-laws, right? In Yiddish we call it the whole mishpucha, and then they gather, and it's more attachment. And then what do you need to sustain it? Vitta, you need wealth. There's never enough, right? Especially today. Everybody's struggling to make ends meet, as we used to say. And what's the result? The last line, janasya, all of this generates moha, more and more bewilderment, characterized by false ego. Moha, yamaham mameti. Aham mameti is what ahankar is. My I and mind. This is my body, this is my wife's body, these are all my children, and my relative, this is my house, my, this is my bank account, And that's a big entanglement. Huge number of knots in the heart, and it's the illusory energy working. So Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga, is meant to liberate us from this thrall, from the ropes of the heart, from this entanglement. That's just human life. Then if you have no culture, you have no law, you've been born all kind of sins, you lose a human life. And you have the same kind of thing in a very rudimentary form with, all kind of animal life. They also have their household, they have their nest, whatever. So the whole point here is that the Vedic culture with its different ashrams provides a way to control that, and if yes, there need to be religious householders, but to do it in such a way that it's limited by time, and it's limited by intimacy. It's not that any time you feel, the sex is meant for having good children, right? Children who are can be raised in such a culture that they will also be moral, and they will want to go back to Godhead and whatever. So that's the whole point of Varnashram. We learn that in the second chapter, first canto. Ata pumba dvija shrestha varnashrama vibhagasha swanustitasya dharmasya sanksiddhi haritoshan. Suvanustitasya means performing your function in the varna and ashram very nicely. Ata pumba dvija shrestha, Sutta is addressing all of these exalted souls in Naimisharanya. Varnashram vibhagasha, in the divisions of Varna and Ashram, su-anustitasya, you're performing it very nicely, you're absorbing very nicely, then the result is Dharma says sanksiddhi haritoshanam, Hari will be satisfied. If Krishna is not in the middle of the Varna and Ashram system, then it becomes corrupted. Then it becomes caste consciousness. The caste system is really a pejorative. The caste. Is that, well, I'm born in this caste, and this is, I'm going to load it over. But Varnashram, the whole point is the ashram part of it, is that it's a spiritual way of organizing society so that it goes on smoothly, but everyone gets a chance to advance in devotional service and make sense out of his life. Actually, human life is meant for something, the Dharma. So that's what's being explained here, and this is an ideal situation, because in the second chapter, Krishna describes the standard means of degradation. Become absorbed in the objects of the senses, you become attracted to them, you become lusty after them, there's a very strong desire, and if you engage in that, then you lose your intelligence, or from kama comes anger, because you can never have enough, and and you become angry at those who are... So the anger is there. As soon as the anger is there, your intelligence can be lost, and you can do something that you regret the rest of your life, right? And when the intelligence is lost, you fall down and you're finished. What we have separate from the animals is the intelligence. And if it doesn't result in dharma, which is defined in the second chapter, first canto, that which engenders devotional service, not just that which makes money, our dharma, artha, kama, moksha, that's, then it's no better than animal life. What is that verse? You know the verse. How does it start? Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. We share that. Ahara nidra bhayamaitanancha samanyametad pasabhi samana dharma hitesha madigo vishesha dharma nihina pasabhi samana. So we share with the animals, who can deny it, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They do it in their way, we do it in our way. But what makes it dharma? There has to be some dharma. Not the dharma that just try to make money and enjoy sense gratification, but dharma that engenders, that produces bhakti. That's what savai pungsang paro dharma yato bhakti radhokshaje is right there. Paro dharma. We don't want some second class dharma, we want the supreme dharma, which produces bhakti, which has to be ahoitikiya pratiyata, selfless and unbroken, to fully satisfy the self. You see, other dharmas you may be able to, make some money, you worship the demigods, whatever, but that's not going to fully satisfy the self. Even if you go to heaven, you have to come back down again. So this verse I felt was very important, and the key is videyatma. One accepts the principles of self-control, atma vashar, in the Vedas, then you can get the prasadam, you can get the grace of the Lord. You see, and what's the result of that? Explained. For one who is thus prasade savabhudukanam hanu, for one who is thus who is thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. So this is the key: is to accept those vidis. Is just like if you come and you're curious about what to do, and you read in the books, there's so many instructions Prabhupada gives. So if you decide, yes, I want to try it, just like you say, I want to try, curling, where they throw those things. I don't know if it's Olympics or not, but anyway. Then you have to go to someone who knows how to do it, and you have to learn the very process, how to throw it, whatever, whether you want to become a high jump or whatever. There's something, there's the do's and the don'ts. So we have our Vidi Nisheda. Smartabjak Sadatam Vishnu, Vishmatavitam. Sarvak Vidi Nisheda Eteyo Eva Kindida. Vidi and Nisheda means what you accept and what you reject. That's the principle of surrender, the first two. Anukulyena samkalpa, patikulya subharjanam. You see? So anyone who walks into the temple who's serious about trying to practice, immediately you learn, yes. Best thing is chant Hare Krishna, as much as possible, and give up these four things: meat eating, illicit sex, intoxication. So for many people, I can't do that right away, but I'll try chanting. But even if you just do one, if you can just give up meat eating, it becomes easier to meat eating is, it agitates the senses like anything, it's very difficult. So that's why oftentimes people who visit the temple, you're curious, they're already vegetarians. I know I was. And I don't think I would have been interested before I became a vegetarian. And I was practicing yoga and everything. But it's, so that, that's the idea. However many of the vidis, of the do's and the don'ts you're willing to accept, then you'll actually begin to taste Krishna consciousness. And the whole idea is when you taste some pleasure in Krishna consciousness, that's directly a hint of the pure kind of pleasure you can enjoy, of which sex pleasure and all the other sense gratification is a reflection, a perverted reflection. That kind of pleasure, as I love to quote, in the classes, is, as we say, as Krishna says so eloquently, Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam. No, that's a different one. Yehi sangsparjajam bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyandamanta konteya nateshu ramate buddha. You have to use your God-given intelligence as a human being and apply it to Prabhupada's books. Basically, that's it, to the Shastra. Otherwise, you can apply it in different ways. How you can increase your sense gratification, how you can make more money, how you can build up your body, how you can go here, go there, do that. It's all a diversion. It's all Maya's trick. It's a tragic misuse of human life, human intelligence. So our job as devotees is to, first of all, use our intelligence to control the lower self. That's in the next chapter. How to the intelligence has to become strengthened through hearing and chanting and reading transcendental literature, and so that we learn about the incredible benefits, of being Krishna conscious and progressing, and so we're inspired to do what's necessary to advance. And first thing is to don't do that, do that. Don't eat that, eat that. Don't associate with that, associate with these persons here. And that's what these temples are for, to give outposts of the spiritual world. Someone walks in here, they may be just curious, some for the first time, So, of course, we want them to leave with some literature. That's very important. But at the same time, they encounter a different world. This attractive form of God. You never hear that, I'll tell you, in the Western culture, that God has a beautiful form and he's so attractive. It's mostly he's very powerful and he's pretty stern and he's a punisher, so don't do that. Don't do that. You'll suffer forever in hell. It's based on fear, but this process is based on love ultimately. We're not serving Krishna out of fear. We're serving Krishna because he's all attractive. And because his name is all attractive. And that's the great benediction of this age. Lord Chaitanya, as is Krishna, he brought that. Very simple, easy process. Nam nam akadi bahudani sarva shaktis tatrapitani amitak smarane nakala. Etadashita vakripa bhagavan mamapi durdaivam idashami hajani nararaga. That Krishna is so merciful that he's given us all these different names in which he's invested. What did he invest in them? What is it? Yes, the different potencies. He's ingested all of his potencies in them. And, well, what do I have to do to become qualified to chant? Nothing. There's no pre-qualification. A little child can chant, an old man, any race, any age, any gender, any socio. There's no hard and fast rules. You see, which is completely different from the standard Vedic thing. If you're not a Brahmin, you're not qualified to chant these Vedic mantras, these secret Vedic mantras. No, everyone's qualified to chant. That's a revolution. So, and if someone is willing to take that up, then his whole life becomes auspicious. You don't even realize the first time you chant, the first name, how you've just eradicated eons of bad karma that are all coming due if you don't do anything. You don't realize that. I'll tell you a little incident that happened. I don't know if I mentioned this. I know I didn't mention it in class. I was coming over, I think it was 2 days now, as the little route down Dawes and then over on the alley. And I have my flashlight as usual. It's 4:15, and I look down and there's this little baby bird dying. The poor bird was lying on his back, and the ants were already around. It was like a horrific scene. So what did I do? Well, I leaned down and I chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, a couple of times. What else could I do? But it's just a microcosm, of the great devotees who come to us. We may have seemed to be in good shape, but everybody is dying. We're all headed toward death, and inauspicious. And Prabhupada, following the order of his spiritual master, who was following the mood of Lord Chaitanya, to spread this science all over the world. He risks his life, there's no question about it, and literally, to come to America. And it's like, if you think of going to India by steamer with 100 rupees, it's just worth what? Nothing. Not really knowing anybody, don't know what you're going to find, just with a mission to spread the science of Krishna consciousness and write books. It's just so inconceivable when you really think about it. Prabhupada did it, and it was a success because he had Krishna behind him. He had the 6 Goswamis. He had so many advantages in that way. Even though it was touch and go, especially when he got ill, he had to go back to India. But he's come just to give us the treasure of how we can sublimate the material desires headed by sex desire into devotion and love for Krishna, which is what it is, a perverted reflection of. And Krishna is so great, he can reciprocate a personal relationship with every one of us, every living entity, the countless quadrillions of billions of them. There's a personal relationship. We've all forgotten it, but and you can feel Krishna in that personal relationship. So that, and just a taste of that is the perfect antidote to this material attachment. And if you keep it, if you progress nicely, then at one point you have to always be very careful, and as described in our verse that we just read here, the old butter pot thing. But it's not like you have more opportunity to be, peace. That's the whole thing. Ashanta sikutaksakam. If your intelligence is fixed, well established, then what do you attain? Peace. Without that intelligence, when it is not connected with the Supreme, it can have neither transcendental intelligence nor steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace, and how can there be any happiness without peace? So peace means that you're not always agitated, for some sense gratification, whether it's sex or anything else. You're actually feeling detached. You're feeling that you're detached from matter because you're more attached to Krishna. You got to be attached. This idea that you can give up all attachment, that's the Buddhist thing, that's the Mayavad thing. It's really impossible, and that's why it always fails. But it is possible to purify the attachments and sublimate the sex desire into love of God. And that's what our system is all about. And we're receiving this wonderful instruction from the Bhagavatam, the old butter and fire. So we have to, observe the formalities of minimal association, while at the same time cultivating Krishna consciousness, which will purify our attachment more and more, so that it won't be a constant thing that's coming up in your mind all the time. What's hopefully coming up in your mind is Krishna Lila, and you see that's what is the real counteraction of this imprisonment. It's the shackles of sex desire. And we see so many accounts in the Shastra, not of pure devotees, but of advanced transcendentalists, yogis. Who was it? Was it Vishwamitra who became attracted to not Urvasi? Shakuntala was born. I forget that one, but that's an example of, Menaka. Menaka was born. Yes. Menaka is the woman who came down, and Shakuntala was born, and they wrote a play about it. And then there was who was that? Meditating in the Yamuna? Huh? Saubhari Muni. I mean, you can see he's meditating in the Yamuna, but what's he meditating on? If he wanted to be Krishna conscious, he'd come out of the Yamuna. Oh, you see some fish copulating. Oh, he loses it. Come on. So, and then he had to go through the whole thing, multiple wives, you know, and finally renounced. So there's so many examples, and there's so many examples all around us, you know. So this is the magic of Krishna consciousness, as Mahatma so memorably said. The magic is in the chanting, and the chanting is really the Yuga Dharma. So we should maximize it as much as possible. When there's a kirtan, and take advantage of the kirtans and the festivals. Now we're coming up on Radhashtami, and it'll be so much wonderful kirtans we'll hear about. Radharani, who's of course, what does it say? I'll give you a little taste of the poem. Hopefully I'll be able to chant on Radhashtami. Her gold complexion steals the pride of golden lotus tinged with red. Her fragrance mocks the scent of lotus bloom with saffron powder spread. Her skill in satisfying Sri Hari is perfect and complete. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. So there's 8 verses like that, and the 9th verse says that anyone who chants these verses, Radharani will pour the nectar of her service down on him eternally. So it's probably worth trying it at least once. That's why I give it out freely. If you don't have my poetry file, write to me or just ask me, I'll send it to you. Okay, any questions or comments? It's 8:33. Okay. Anyone online? I think Vijay Krishna has given up on my classes. Maybe he's traveling. Yeah, he hasn't. We haven't heard from him. Yeah, hope he's okay. Okay, well, I didn't give you a poem yet. I did give you that one poem. But here's another one. See, the prayer, you know, we can pray. It's my favorite prayer. From Kunti Devi. Baba loved these prayers. Tvaime ananya vishayam matir madhupate sakrit ratamun bahatarandha gange baugamadhanmati. Very pertinent to our class. Oh Krishna,